it going all? Welcome back to the shed. Well, sod's law is, as soon as I say I'm going to start getting some regular videos up and going, things conspire to get in your way, and I have a few weeks where I haven't. Reason being, I've been doing some, a complete lifestyle flip round for myself and getting all healthier than my days of decadence. And doing these obstacle course runs and a bit of running and stuff, a lot of it for charity as well. So I've had a couple of weekends where I've been away doing these obstacle course races, so I've not been able to do any video stuff, and also training for one of these. The week before I had a big race, I managed to crack 2 ribs, so that weekend that I had kind of off to do stuff, I wasn't really feeling like doing much. It was a bit painful moving stuff around. So that's kind of been it. And the weekend that's just gone, we had Mackie's pinstriping, Cambridge pinstriping bike meet at Market Deeping, which was a fantastic day. Great to see everyone there. Weggy, Skeggy, Suffolk Andy, Springy, who else? Carl, and all the other people I forget. Obviously Mackie and Sean as well. But great day out there. So now I'm on to this little video, which is going to be, again, another jump to something I wasn't planning on doing, but it might be quite a handy little video, is fitting a mini Speedo. Now the reason this came about is when I did the crack ribs, I rode to work for a few days on, my bike, which has just got solid struts, no rear suspension. And I'd also managed to really smash my arsebone, the old coccyx as well. So, I mean, it's not the most comfortable ride in the world, because I mean the seat's pretty shaved down, and as we know, I'm doing the seat because the foam's gone on that one. So it's pretty brutal as it is. Throw in a couple of cracked ribs and a bruised coccyx, and it's a fucking nightmare. So I actually put the shocks back on my bike, dug them out, and put some progressive shocks on that I'd got. And just to give myself a bit of a breather for a week or two, and in doing that, because on the struts I've glued the LED strips on, so nothing's sticking out, it's kind of quite minimal. Obviously I didn't have any indicators, so I was looking around for some other little LED indicators or something that I had knocking around just to stick on, just to get me through whilst I was having the shocks on. And that's when I first discovered, I plugged some in, and I had this problem where all 4 indicators were flashing. It was kind of a bit of a mixed kind of signal. It was, you do the left would flash fine, go do the right, and then kind of they'd all flash. One would be a bit sporadic. It was, but almost not quite full on hazards. Now, which is strange because I've got an LED flasher relay in that bike. Triumph have this weird thing, and the more electrical guys will probably be able to explain it, but the way the signal goes to like the left or the right turn in your idiot lights, it kind of flips between the earthing for one of them. So if you turn in left, the signal goes that way, and then you turn right and it goes the other way. It's a very simplified system of doing things, but it does mean that if you're using normal bulbs, it works. If you use LEDs, which have less of a draw, they all flash because it's not drawing enough current for it to separate between the two, or something like that. But the electric guys will know. Anyway, so I've got these 4 indicators flashing. I'm thinking maybe my flasher relay's gone a bit weird because I haven't got a standard instrument cluster. I've just got a small mini Speedo with built-in LEDs, and it's never done it before. So I switched out for another LED relay. Same thing, no good. Put the old solid struts back on. Maybe they're a bit of cheapo, dodgy LEDs indicators from China. Put the other ones back on, which have been working fine. Same problem. And in fact, I'll throw a bit of a clip to show you what I'm about. Yeah, so it was a little bit confusing. So the other thing I then did was this, which was to unplug, because the LED, I mean, all the indicators are working. I'm getting power to the indicators. The flasher relay's not broken because that was working on the other bikes, and I've switched out 2 for that. So the only other point is really either we're into the switch gear, which is unlikely, but the instrument cluster. And I'm thinking something to do, maybe some wiring or whatever there, you know, it's had a whole winter, no front mud guard, water spraying all over it all the time, so God knows what corrosion's gone on. So I unplugged the Speedo and the lights to see what would happen, and this happened. It was pretty much going to be something in the instrument cluster. Now, it did look a little bit corroded up when I went in there, because there's some joining of wires and whatnot, so I thought that's probably what's causing an issue. I have had it in the wet when I'll be riding along and for no reason the idiot light will start flashing even though I'm not turning anywhere, and I'll be like, oh my god, I've left the indicators on, look, the indicators aren't going. So I'm figuring something's shorting out, or something's going a bit ski whiff in there. So I thought I'm going to strip all that back and just resolder and recrimp the pins. Do it all nice and fresh and nice and clean, so we should be good to go. Now, when you're using a normal bulb for the indicator lights, if you have this problem, normally you need to put some diodes in the turn signals, so the current is only, a diode is just like a one-way street for the current, you know, for the signal, so it can't go back. So that kind of, however the magic of electricity works, that kind of solves your problem with it flashing. Or you can throw in an LED, which is also a diode. It's only going to go one way through an LED. But then my mini Speedo's already got the LEDs in, and I never had this problem before. So this is where I'm a bit confused as to why it's just started happening. It's a bit bizarre. So I've recrimped everything, and haven't got any diodes in it. Put it back together, still all full flashing. So we're going to revisit it again now, and I think I'm going to have to put some diodes in, and I might address another little problem I've got, which is with the high beam light, the blue LED, and blue and white LEDs tend to be pretty bright anyway. The blue one is just mental bright at night. It blinds you where it is. It was a problem when I had it on the Bonneville, it's a problem on the America, and I've just now taped over it with a bit of electrical tape just to stop myself getting blinded, because I literally cannot ride on full beam with that thing blaring out. It's probably brighter than that. So the Speedo, and as you can see with my fantastic diffuser there for the main beam LED, a little bit of electrical tape. But right, so we'll start off. So this is after I've repaired it, and it's still not it's looking like I'm going to need diodes in line. And again, I just can't work out, because I just have no elektrickery knowledge really, or the science behind it, but trying to work out why that was working before and it isn't now, I don't really know. So we're going to unwrap it, but you see on this one, rather than cut into the existing loom, this is the connector that they use on the Triumphs, or at least it's the female end that I've bought aftermarket, so I haven't got to actually butcher the main loom. This is literally, as you call it, a plug in and play. So what I'll do is, if you're interested to do this, I'll put up the actual part and the crimps. There is a correct crimping tool that you can get for these, which is probably about 300 quid or something crazy like that. We use a lot of different crimping tools at work. We don't have this one, but I tend to use a I'll get onto this. I'm probably jumping ahead a bit, but I use a one shot, I call them. So like that, which are basically just they'll just do a whole range of different ones. You can get them on eBay pretty cheap, and they usually do the job. You have to be a bit careful. You might not do it all in one hit. I know I call it a one shot, but it's, you might have to do the insulation and the wire bit. But yeah, so it can be done quite cheaply. The actual housing and the connectors are pretty cheap, but I'll put up what they are now. So if you wanted to fit a mini Speedo, you can look on RS Components is where I got mine from. We use them at work, or does Maplin still exist even? I don't know, they might do it, but or if you just do a search online, you'll probably be able to find someone. If you're in the States, somewhere like, I think, is it Mouser and things like that, Radio Shack probably. But yeah, here we go. Okay, so something else that would probably be a bit handy is how to extract the crimps from this kind of housing. So if you wanted to, say, use your existing housing and not buy another one, or if you're, when you're putting the wires in, you get your orientation wrong, you know, and you put the wrong crimp in the wrong wire, this might be handy. And this can all be done with household objects just found lying around. So I mean, basically inside here, if you imagine that's the housing as we're looking at it like that. Your wire, and inside pretty much that's your wire. You're going to have your crimp. This is just a rough approximation of a crimp. Let's say it looks kind of like that. So this is squeezed around the wire here, and you've got your strands of wire in this bit. In these particular housings, there is a little part of the whole housing in each individual section. There'll be like this little tang here where it stops. This varies from housing to housing. Normally you can go online and find the data sheets that show you how they fit in the housings and stuff like that. I might have one for this. If I have, I'll put it up now. But basically what you need to do is you're going to need something just to lift this. Some you squeeze like a little tang, say, on the actual crimp itself, and you flatten that, and then that allows it to slide out. On these particular ones there isn't that. You just literally have to insert something in here and lift this plastic tang here up, so you can see on there where the crimp is actually, if that's going to focus, where the crimp comes out there. You've got this little gap here, and that you can just see it reflected there. That'll be like the little plastic tang there that we need to lift up. Just see it there. And I get like a little shitty cheap screwdriver. This one, as you can see, with no, probably can't see, a bit blurry, but with no no finesse or whatever. I've just filed it down, did that on the grinding wheel into a little point. Again, you can get proper extraction tools, and actually, having used them a lot of the time, they're not actually worth the ridiculous amount of money they are. The actual extraction tool for this looks not as rough as this, but it's the same thing. But so you just need something that's going to be able to get down in there and then just lift that tang up. The other thing to notice on these housings, again, you kind of got to get to know your housings. They're all slightly different, but there's this kind of like retaining clip on these.
let's see if that's probably easy to see when you've got one in front of you. But yep, just repeat that until you got all the little buggers out. So with a bit of messing around, got the housing out, and you obviously got your Speedo with all the wires. Now these seem to be fairly consistent all the way through, these ones with the built-in LEDs and whatnot. And clean that off. Actually, that's probably frosted it quite nicely. Oh, might even leave that. So yeah, so you got the wiring on the back here. Now this is going into a carbed Bonneville or America. So you are literally, it is the nice basic easy one to do. You literally, all you're replacing is, obviously got mechanical Speedo on this one, and turn signal indicator, oil light indicator, neutral indicator, main beam indicator, and then a backlight in there as well. So obviously for later, was it CAN bus systems, I know that's a lot more complicated. I used this on my EFI Bonneville that was a mechanical driven Speedo. So it was EFI but with the mechanical drive, 2010. There is a way of wiring it so your engine management light and your low fuel warning also utilise, I forget which ones it was, I think it was if there was low fuel, I think the neutral light would start to flash as you're riding. Can't remember exactly. And if there was an engine management light issue, one of the others stayed on. It was either, no, oil flashed I think repeatedly when it was low fuel. Neutral stayed on all the time when it was engine management. I think something like that. I can't quite remember. It was a long time ago. I don't actually remember how that was wired. For that would be something I'd have to look up again, and in fact might do when I come to wiring the Speedo on the hardtail Bonneville, which is the same bike as my EFI one. So I'm afraid this video is going to deal exclusively just with mechanical driven Speedos for the older carb models, or an EFI if you just don't mind losing your engine management light and low fuel light. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wires coming out the back of the Speedo. Seems like quite a lot, but when you start to break it down, it's all pretty easy. And this is quite nicely colour coordinated. So let's start with, let's start from left to right. So blue LED for main light, high beam rather. And that is just the blue wires for the blue light. You've got two there, and you can see one's got a black stripe in it and the other one is solid blue. Solid blue is main light positive, blue with black stripe is main light negative. So that's one down. The next one, neutral light, green. See where this is going. Green wire, solid green, neutral positive, solid green but with black stripe, neutral negative, matching the same colour as the bulb. Can you guess? Red light for oil, red wire, oil positive, red wire, black stripe, oil negative. Yellowy amber, so you could get a bit confused, you'd think indicators might be orange, but no, it's the yellow one for the turn signals. So yellow solid, turn signal positive, yellow and black, turn signal negative. The orange one, which is all on its own, is the backlight, the illumination for this. The black wire is a negative for the black light. So there you go. So that's pretty much where all of these wires feed to on there. It's quite simple. You can work it out off there. It's quite well done that in that sense. The other end, it's not, I mean, it is as simple. There is some joining up of wires that we'll have to do, and again I'll put up the little schematic I did, and I've used this in conjunction with the Haynes manual wiring as well, so you can see in the main harness end how they meet up, but you can kind of work it out just looking at it really if you take your time. But you can see we've got the oil light positive and the neutral light positive, they join together in one pin. You've got, what are the other ones that join together? Right, I've got to be careful because I ran out of wires, so this is a bit confusing, this one. Yes, so we've got the turn signal yellow, and that should go into, if you wanted to keep it clear, a black and a yellow and a solid yellow. So it kind of takes the positive and splits it into the two. So that you can use any colour really, but it's basically you take the positive turn signal, split it into two positive pins for the turn signal. Then there's a load of negatives that are bunched together, and that is the backlight negative, the main beam negative, and the turn signal negative. So all these go to earth, and they're all joined together in one pin as well. So these are the ones that we're going to be dealing with later as well for the turn signal issues. And what's going to happen is we're going to need to put some diodes in line here. This is where the problem is. All the other wires just go to their respective single pin points. Not that one, like that one, that one. They all go to their signals, but I'll put up the old schematic so you can see it, but maybe that just helps seeing it in the flesh, so to speak. So there we go, so that's going to be the end of this first video. So that's just basically having a little look at the Speedo, the problems I've got. So it's how to wire in a Speedo, and if you've got problems with LEDs flashing. Again, if this fix in the next video will work if you're using the standard instrument cluster as well and you're having problems with LEDs. But yeah, I think I'll call it like one video on that one. It's probably about 25 minutes or something like that, which is probably enough to take in. So hopefully I've left it on the little schematic I drew out, a little bit rough and ready on paint, but there you go. And that will give you something to follow if you're doing the same sort of thing. But that schematic will not include the diodes yet, so we're going to try that in the next one, see if that fixes my flasher problem. So we're going to put two diodes in line, and the high beam, the brightness of that LED, which is been a bit of a bother, which I've kind of got round with a bit of electrical tape. That I'm going to try and fix that. I'm going to have a route round because I'm just using bits that I've got left over. I think I've got a bag of diodes somewhere. I'm going to try and find a resistor that I can put in line with the positive. I think it's with the positive leg of the blue wire. If I put a resistor in line, that's going to resist the amount of current that's going through and hopefully dim down that light a little bit. That's the plan anyway. I'm trying and work out how I figure out what resistor is needed. There are ways of doing it and you can calculate it. But again, as you all know, I'm not really an elektrickery person, so this is all a bit winging it. So hopefully that helps as well if you want to do this and you're not particularly electrically minded like me. This might kind of put it into dummies guide sort of thing. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Catch you on the next one when, fingers crossed, we'll actually solve it and I can have idiot lights again.